not just to cinemas, but to homes, book clubs, and community spaces across Southern Africa. At the helm of this poetic five-part film is writer, cultural critic, and first-time director Milisuthando Bongela. In Milisuthando, she reflects on her life growing up in the former Republic of Transkei, a pseudo-independent homeland under apartheid, to explore layered themes of race, memory, love, and belonging. Milisuthando joins us now in studio to talk about the film's homecoming. Milisuthando, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you so much for having me.
It's an absolute pleasure. So, your film has now returned onto home soil. Firstly, take us through what the reaction has been globally with this beautiful piece of work.
It's something we never ever dreamt we would ever receive. The film has been so well received in all 6 continents, from obviously starting in South Africa, the US, Canada, Australia, Taiwan, India, Korea, Kenya, so many places around the world. And we were just making a little film for ourselves here in South Africa, not knowing that it would resonate so much with people in the world. So it's now finally available for people here at home to watch.
So let's unpack it and talk about it a bit. I mean, it's described as a personal essay, blending archival footage, family memories, historical narratives. How do you approach balancing all of these different elements of such a film to craft a cohesive poetic mediation on race, memory, and love?
Well, it took a very long time to make. We spent 2 years editing and about 8 years developing the story. So in total, it's taken about 10 years.
Okay.
And I don't know if I would advise many people to take that long to make one project, but it was a matter of trial and error and really listening to our instincts, my team and I's instincts, of actually what story are we trying to tell here. We started trying out the traditional documentary structures and found that it's not doing the thing that we wanted it to do, which is to kind of emotionally penetrate and get to the various ways in which people have been affected by race and racism at an emotional level, not just at a material level, but spiritually, emotionally. What has this thing done to our humanity? And how do we unpack it from that depth? So at an ancestral level even, how do we heal our ancestors? How do we heal the new generation so that we don't keep inheriting the same spirit of this division? And so the approach kind of had to be multi-layered. It had to be lots of trial and error. And at the end, I actually borrowed a lot from modes of storytelling that are from Intsomi. From like indigenous forms of Ibantu ways of telling stories.
Yes.
And so the film is kind of unique in that way. It's not a traditional documentary. It's a patchwork of different approaches. And it's been received in the way that we intended. A lot of people, when they see it, say thank you in tears. White people, black people, Indians, coloreds, everybody, because we designed it to kind of reach people beyond the level, while dealing, of course, with race and asking, what was apartheid? That's where we started to ask.
And it also just emanates from your own personal history. Of you growing up in the Transkei, and the influences of how thematically that is then developed through the emotional tone of the film. It's also named after yourself, and you were telling me how your mom only named you 5 days after you were born.
Yes, the story goes that she named me a few days after I was born, and she said she was reading a hymn book. That's where she came up with this concept of Milisuthando, which then became an instruction and a sense of purpose as a person. Like, whatever I do in the world, I must be making sure that Milisuthando noxolo, which is my second name.
Right.
So Milisuthando noxolo. And it was this concept that helped me, or this approach that helped me to look at South Africa's very painful, very difficult history and say, how do we look at it without fear and at the same time come out still with the spirit of intending to love ourselves and each other. And yeah, the film is an invitation into that looking at self, because it took the reason it took such a long time is because it was me looking at my personal history and asking, wait, why do we not talk about the homelands anymore? Why, and why is it that we think we had the same experience? I think we were all told that, you know, we had the exact same experience during apartheid. All of us were very much oppressed in townships and all the white people were rich. And it's like, wait a minute, I didn't really grow up in this kind of place and I didn't know what the Transkei was. And it's only when I went back into archives that I saw things that made me so shocked that There was a president in the Transkei. There was a parliament. There were, and I don't really remember white people in my neighborhood and my surrounds. I remember Ghanaians and Ugandans. How did they get here? And then when you dig into the archive, you discover there were different South Africas, actually. There were different, there was a place named Bophuthatswana, Venda, Leboa, Kwakwa, all of these different places. And my thing now, you know, asking these questions today is, we see where the country is right now.
Right.
We have such incredible potential in this country, and yet it's crumbling at every seam possible. And we don't know what the solution is. And my question is the current way of doing things politically working for us? And if we were to say, let's clean the slate and decide, okay, what South Africa do we want? Many of us get stuck as, actually, what do we want? And my thing is, let's go back to the history to discover, wait, what was this place? And what is the root of what we have now? And when you go back into the history, you discover, wait, man, we were not all having the same experience. And what were these enclaves? And if we maybe have a sense of looking, rediscovering, understanding what those were, we might know how to proceed.
And why do you think we've put that history in the way that we have, where we sort of paint that picture as if everyone had the same experience? Do you think that is what possibly helped catapult us out of apartheid and move us more quickly to democracy?
Necessary. I think it was necessary to create a nice story that said, okay, this is the neat narrative we're going to tell ourselves to get out of apartheid, to arrive at the fact that me and you are sitting here today, having gone to school, having been educated, now as young, empowered people who've inherited the country, and we're the grown-ups now.
Yes.
We now have to do, we can't check out anymore and say, oh, the elders will take care of it. It's us now who are the elders. And we need an incredible imagination to hold the thing together. And as a storyteller, my job is to heal the narratives we tell ourselves. I must make sure that we must look at the history, but we must not be overly consumed by it to a point where we have no hope. Mine is to keep the hope going, is to say, hey, well, this thing was ugly, but how do we wake up and tell ourselves better stories about who we are so that we can survive it? And I think when we're able to find our roles, as some people are accountants, some people are mathematicians, some people are lawyers, the artists, the storytellers, the filmmakers, ours is to emotionally influence how people see themselves every day. What story do we tell ourselves as a people? The journalists, you guys must tell us the corruption's happening. The corruption is there and it's wrong. But mine is not to be overwhelmed by that. It's to say, we have to, how do we get out of this thing? And so storytellers, filmmakers, artists, these are the people we need to help kind of hold us and hold our confidence together. And I think a film like this asks us to go through a very difficult way of, let's look at actually what happened and not assume that we knew what apartheid was, because maybe for white South Africans, apartheid doesn't mean the same thing as it does for black South Africans in Soweto. Maybe they meant, hey, it was a time where we could be protected and it was safe, and we knew where we belonged, and now we almost feel like we're in a free fall. And so it's to go back and the film encourages people to go back and ask, do we know this thing that we've tried to bury? Do we understand the cadaver that we're trying to bury?
Right.
Let's look at it and see actually what was this thing.
Do you think storytellers have a role in healing collective trauma?
Yes, 100%. When you wake up in the morning, the way you leave your house and how you engage other people is dependent on who you tell yourself you are in the morning. If you say, you know, I'm poor, I'm ugly, I don't mean anything, I have no purpose, I have no confidence, this is how the world will receive you also.
That's what you reflect.
And if you tell yourself another story, if you say, no, I've been loved at home. I know what love is. I know that life is difficult, it's got challenges, but I have my faith, I have this, I have that. The world will receive you in such a way. And I think how these countries are constructed is because people put narratives out there. So we believe in 1994, we believe in Simunye we are one, we believe in the Rainbow Nation because we were told that story.
Yeah.
And now the story that we tell ourselves is that the place is falling apart. We don't believe in our leaders. We don't have any leaders. I think maybe we can say this particular system, maybe we can look at it and say, maybe it hasn't worked. But there are many young people with many ideas. And I feel as a storyteller, our role is to look at the history, but also ensure that people must and can live and thrive just ideologically from a sense of confidence about who they are. Yeah.
Do you think young people struggle to tap into that for them to really understand what it is that they could tap into in order to assist a way forward for the country to be in a better place?
I struggle sometimes, and I have to do a lot of very, very conscious. I have to make a conscious effort to filter what I'm telling, what I'm watching, what am I seeing on social media, what music am I listening to, how many expletives are in my day, how many times does the F word come up in my day, and I have to be like, no, what does this mean for my brain? What does it mean for how I see myself? How I see? If I call all my friends the B word, my girlfriends, what does that actually do to my relationship to them? What does it do to myself? If I'm using the N-word to refer to my brothers, which is what I see a lot of young people doing because we've made it so permissible in music videos and movies, what does that mean in terms of how people see themselves? So I do think that there's a role that media, social media, language, the ways in which we engage each other plays in how people see themselves. And that, I think that needs to be healed. But that needs leaders, that needs people who take that role very, very seriously. And I do think as storytellers, in an economy or in a world where a lot of things are done for money, we're also struggling under the need to survive. And so we also are doing things that maybe don't make us sleep at night, but give us a place to sleep at night. But it's like, for me, it's about balancing ethics and intention and why. Why am I doing this? For me, my motivation is like, we have an incredible indigenous knowledge world here. If I look into my culture as Umfengu, Umxhosa, if we look at who we are as AmaZulu, AmaZulu, Namatswana, and we study those cultures and we try to figure out how did they survive apartheid? How did they contain themselves? Why is it still sisahlaba singabanye abantu? Why is it that we still believe in our ancestors? How did this thing survive? We study that, we get into those worlds, we ask our elders, we go back home. I think it's important also to sometimes leave the urban areas if you're able to go home as Lalini, to go and spend time there to see how do people live, how does this, and that's what I did when I was making the film. I went home and I spent a lot of time with my grandmother and asked, how is she still standing after surviving colonialism, apartheid, the Transkei, democracy, and she's less angry than me. And I'm like a fees must fall pro, like I understand that we need to decolonize, but how is it that she has held her humanity, nobuntu bake, and yet I'm more angry and I'm more insufferable, actually, as a young person. And it took me following her, understanding who she is, sitting at her feet and respecting my elders and listening to what is their wisdom to understand, oh, there's another way that, there's another way to be in the world.
And what fundamentally came out of those discussions with your grandmother within this research process? Because a lot of young people have got the education, the literacy and the awareness nowadays from what they get in terms of whatever tertiary education that they would receive, but at the same time balancing that out with then ancestrally how things worked. Who are we from a humanity perspective? And so what is it that you were able to draw from your grandmother while you were having those conversations to say, so this is where the balance is?
I never had any big, wise conversations with my grandmother. I just spent time with her. I just did tasks with her. When she was going to fetch inkamkam yake, I would just walk with her. When she was going to visit the neighbors, I would just walk with her and listen to people. It wasn't a matter of, I wasn't here like, hey, tell me I just spent weeks with her, following her around and tapping out of the rhythm of life of Johannesburg, tapping out of the Western mode of like engagement, being much slower and realizing, blackness is not the same here in the village as it is in Johannesburg. It's not in defense.
Right.
Abantu are able to have a very, very different relationship to each other. And it was that instinct that made me go, wait, what was this place? What is this place? And when I would talk to her about the Transkei, she would show me her documents and tell me things were better in the Transkei. And the democracy is very confusing and very overwhelming, and there's no jobs, and things seem to be falling apart. And as much as I was very shocked to hear that, I was curious. I was trying not to judge her. I would be more curious, but tell me, how was it better? And she'd break down. And this is when it became clear that, wait, this was a completely different country. And then when the documents in the archive were backed up by me interviewing regular people about what they remember about that time. And that was the discovery of, we did not have the same experiences. We cannot say, umuntu wehlala eSoweto okanye eGugulethu okanye eMlazi had the same experience as somebody who was living in Qwaqwa or Ciskei or Transkei. And this blew my mind. And then having the evidence of then discovering all of these homeland leaders and all of the ways in which this has not been talked about. We have not gone back to go, can we go back to these and study what these places are? Because they might tell us how we got here. They might tell us why governance is so difficult, why municipalities all over the country are falling apart. There was a way that happened before, there's a step missing.
Certainly.
There's a step missing, and it started with me going home, and also then discovering who am I, or asking the questions, who am I? Discovering my culture, discovering amasiko, not that I didn't grow up with them, but really taking them seriously as, oh, Abantu had a way of living. There's a way of life.
And maybe that could show us how we then move forward.
It has helped me. It has healed me.
Certainly. You are on a self-distribution campaign currently with this film.
Yes.
Just talk to us in terms of why is it important for you to be screening this in community spaces as opposed to traditional cinemas where we'd expect films to be screened, in terms of how you want the audiences to engage with the film?
So the film has gone to cinemas during film festivals in 2023, 2024. Whenever I'm back in South Africa, I'm based in the US now. Whenever I'm back in South Africa, we come, we do screenings. People come and they are always sold out. And people are always like, where can I watch this film? And before this, it was all kind of locked up behind administrative processes of releasing a film. And now finally, now the film can come out. And so we've put it on our website, and people can watch it on the website. And the approach we've taken is the notion of bringing cinema back to the people. South Africans are not going to the movies as much as they used to.
Before.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And it's because we're able to access, we've got all of our streaming channels, and we've got internet at home and YouTube and whatever. So people are not necessarily getting up to go to the movies. The thing that they want is to go to an event, to go to something that's going to be, okay, I'm watching a movie, but I'm also having a conversation, I'm talking to people. And so my team and I have decided to do this campaign of reaching people where they are. So for instance, starting with book clubs. You have a wonderful setting of people who love to think, who love to talk, who love to read something, who love to experience something together.
And you'll be able to
say,
take
okay,
it directly
let's
to
take
them
it directly to them
right.
and have them watch the film, discuss it, and talk about it. Community screenings, different institutions, answering the question that people always ask me, where can we watch the film? If they want to watch it on their own, it's on the website, but we also are encouraging people to host their own screenings, because this is the kind of film you want to watch and talk to somebody
have
about.
conversations
You don't want to
about
watch it and
afterwards.
chew bubble gum afterwards. You want to have a discussion about it. So
Milisuthando, we have run out of time, but thank you so much for joining us. This really has been intriguing. I'm certainly hopeful that many of our South Africans will be able to engage with the film at a level that you would have really wanted them to. Thank you so much for joining us. So that was acclaimed cultural critic, writer, and filmmaker Milisuthando Bongela.